From Cornwall to Birmingham and Johnston and Bexhill, here's Ruben Spire on the radio.
Hello to Karen Law. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. And you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for letting me chat to you today. So, how long have you been a singer-songwriter for?
Oh, God. Well, I suppose since I wrote my first song, which would be when I was around 16 or 17. Yeah.
So, what was it like going to the recording studio for the first time?
Ooh, well, it was a while before I did that. So I started writing songs, when I was still at high school, and that was in Macclesfield in the UK. And then I kept that up. I started going to folk clubs. And then around 8 years later, I moved out to Australia. And I'd still been writing songs. And then I started writing more songs about what I was finding over here. Traveled across from Brisbane to Perth on the other side. It's a long way. And when I got to Perth, I decided I was going to record my first 6 songs. And I went into a little studio there, and I'd never been in before. Had no idea really. And I didn't even know that you had to play to a click track because I'd never been in a studio. So I had always just played live at folk clubs and things, and then, sat down ready to record, and he puts the click track on. And I went, oh, and I had to learn right on the spot to actually keep in time. But he was really nice to me, and he helped the recording engineer. And I came out with a cassette for my first 6 songs because this was a while ago. But I have to say, recording now, I think it always was. It's one of my favorite things because you've written the song and then you get an actual record of it. You get to say, well, this is the song. And it's always going to be there. Even if you're not playing it live to somebody, the song now exists because you've gone in and you've done that work and you've recorded it.
So what inspires you to write music?
The world, events, things, feelings. And I think partly my love of words and poetry. Just that idea of putting the thoughts that I have and what I see around me, to putting that in some kind of poetic way, and making it accessible to people. Yeah.
Okay, tell me more about the first album that you released called Asking Questions of Your Soul.
Yes. Oh, that's actually, that is my second album. Okay. But on Spotify, it's the first. So I did release one way back. So that first little cassette that I made eventually became an album called A Point on the Map, which was really a traveling the world type album. But that was back in 1998, right? And then I settled down and had 3 kids with my partner, who is still around. And I stopped playing. I didn't stop playing music. I still played all the time for my kids. And I was writing children's songs and, being a mum for about 14 years. And then what actually happened is that in 2010, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which was like a horrible shock, and I was not doing well. And the whole healing journey from that, which is possible, thankfully, kind of reignited my love for music. And I started writing songs again. So that album, Asking Questions of Your Soul, is really what came out of that diagnosis and the work that I then did on myself to try and get better, which wasn't only physical, it was physical, mental, spiritual, the whole thing. So that's what that album is. It's quite special to me, but I think it's just a particular point in time in my life that. But what it also did was it got me back into the studio recording again and songwriting, and then things just kind of moved on from there, I guess.
So we've been having a lot of storms in the UK. So at the minute, so can you tell me more about the calm after the storm?
So that was the next album. And by then, all three of my kids that I'd obviously had this break from music to bring up, they were all actually playing music by then, even the ones who were quite young. So all three of them are on that album singing. I think the little one was out in 2018 and she was born in 2004. So do the maths. Yeah, I mean she would have been 14. So she's definitely singing on the album. And my other daughter is singing as well. And then my son Murray is playing guitar and singing and playing bass, I think, on there too. So really that's a collaborative, the whole family, and my partner plays didgeridoo. So it's a whole family collaborative recording adventure. Yeah, and in fact around that time, because of course, the kids were of that age, they were all still living at home. We started performing as a family, and we got a few festival bookings as a whole family band, and that was really good fun. Yeah.
So have you had any thoughts about coming back to UK performing, or?
Oh, I think about it a lot. I'd love to. Yeah, we have. Like at the moment, we're concentrating on Australia and recording another album. But yeah, in the next couple of years, it would be really nice to do that.
All to do with the old logistics, I guess.
Well, yeah, it is. And also because, fitting it in around everything else that we're doing and being able to come for long enough to make it really worthwhile, that's part of it. We've still got lots of family in the UK, so we come over to visit from time to time. So yeah, it would be nice to fit in some music at the same time. Yeah.
So what was it like traveling from the UK to Australia?
Well, back in 96 or 1995 when we came, it was great. It was a one-way ticket with a few stopovers on the way. We, stopped in India, stopped in Nepal, walked the Annapurna circuit. It was just, we were back in those days, just backpacking, carrying everything on our backs, and took about 3 or 4 months and a few flights, obviously, in between. And got to Australia. But we talk about that a lot because my middle daughter, Hazel, is over in the UK now, actually, working in the Lake District. And I talk to her all the time. Talked to her for 2 hours the other day on a video call because we can do that now. And I'm thinking I'm so grateful as a parent that I get to stay in touch with my kids. But when I did the same thing to my parents, there was nothing. No mobile phones. I remember that we sent a fax once we'd completed the Annapurna circuit because they wanted to know that we'd survived and we were fine. So we went somewhere and we actually sent a fax saying, yep, we've finished the walk, we're back. And, that was all they heard from us, because otherwise you'd be sending a letter, which might take 2 weeks to get there. So, yeah. I've forgotten what the question was now, but that was a long answer.
So can you tell more about your recent album that you released called Let the Light Back In?
Yeah, interestingly, that album, so around 4 years ago, I joined a songwriting club, and it's an online songwriting club. I wasn't sure what would happen. I used to be quite a slow writer of songs, and I would allow it to take me months to complete a song. I'd have an idea, and then I'd like carefully work on it, and I'd almost treasure that process because I didn't have that many ideas. So when I got one, I used to work on it really carefully, and I'd feel like I'd get my song out and I'd do a bit of work, and then I'd put it away again and save it for another day, which meant that I wrote 3 or 4, maybe 5 songs a year, and every 3 years or so, that would mean, if they were good, that I'd record an album and put those songs on. And I heard about this songwriting club where you just wrote a song every single week, and there are lots of them. The one I joined is called the I Heart Songwriting Club, started by somebody from Brisbane, so that's why I've heard about it. It's worldwide now, and I just wondered, well, what's going to happen if I start writing a song a week? Are they going to be any good? Will I actually improve? Will they just be rubbish if I keep writing songs? And if, because I used to wait for inspiration, like lots of songwriters, thinking, well, and I used to sometimes feel it. I don't know, almost like I got a sense of, I think there might be a song coming. And then I'd go, right, now I'm feeling creative. And I'd wait for those moments before I actually sat down to write. Anyway, join the songwriting club, and they give you a prompt every week. So that on a Thursday morning, you get an email, and it says, yep, the new topic's ready, and they tell you what to write about. You don't have to. You can ignore it, but they do, they give you some kind of structure around what you're doing, and you've signed up for it. So presumably you want to actually write this thing each week. And I started doing it, and Let the Light Back In was the first album after I started that process. So I guess all the songs on there in some way came from the club. Sometimes they were songs that I wanted to write anyway, and I just kind of waited for a theme that matched what I wanted to write about. But they were all written more quickly than I'd written in the past, and they're certainly not worse than the other songs. One of them, not that awards are necessarily measures of whether a song is good. I don't particularly think that, but the song on there, Wildflower Woman, did win a songwriting award in Australia that I was pretty pleased about, because it's nice to have a song recognised. And so I guess then this new album that we're recording now is also very much driven by songs from the club, and I definitely think that I'm improving, which is a nice thing. I'm 53. I've been doing this for a long time, but it's nice to think that I'm still getting better and learning more about this songwriting.
Because music is a journey, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And the creative process, that's a journey too.
So can you tell me more about your new single that you released, going to release on the 5th of December, called Homesick Christmas?
Yeah, so that is a song that I wrote last December, which is really the only time you ever write a Christmas song, isn't it? And it comes from this feeling that certainly I have always had ever since arriving in Australia. So back in 95, we arrived here in September, and then, by December, that was the first Christmas we had here. And it's a really strange thing, I think, to spend Christmas somewhere so different from where you grew up, because the memories of Christmas, they're so important as a child. Christmas is exciting. Well, in the culture that I grew up in anyway, obviously everyone has their own festivals that are important to their culture, but and I imagine the same would be the case for them. But for me, that was Christmas, and as a child, Christmas, super exciting. And so growing up in the UK, I identify that with cold weather, with snow, with all of those traditional Christmassy things that you hear in all the songs. But of course, over here, it's the hottest time of the year. So you go to the beach and you know it's going to be ridiculously hot. And where I live now, very humid as well. So you definitely want to go for a swim. It's very light. You get up early. The exact opposite of the Christmas. And of course, our kids, they think that's normal for Christmas because they all grew up here. And it's just, I really would say that I never get homesick. You know, I never really miss England as a place. I miss people, but not the place, except at Christmas. Because there's something so unique about that day that it never quite feels right to have a hot Christmas and go to the beach, even though we've been doing it for nearly 30 years. So the song is about that. And what I was trying to capture was that feeling when you wake up and you realize it snowed in the night. And you just know the moment you wake up that something's different. And it always sounds really quiet. There's a sense that, oh, something's happened. Oh, it must have snowed and everything's white and it's beautiful. It doesn't matter how ugly your backyard was before it snowed. When it's all covered in snow, and especially if it's Christmas morning, it looks amazing and nobody's trodden in it yet and there's maybe a few little bird footprints. So it's that's the magic of Christmas for me. So I was trying to capture that, but also a bit of reflection about what it's like to be living on the other side of the world from where that is actually happening.
So you told me that you're going to release some singles and an album. So can you give me some information about that, maybe?
Yeah, sure. After Homesick Christmas is released on the 5th of December, we will be finishing off the next album. So there'll be 12 tracks that are being recorded. I think I know what it's going to be called, but I'm not going to say it because we might change our minds. It's a working title, so I'll just keep that one quiet for now. But we know the tracks that are going to go on it. They're quite a long way through the recording process. And singles will start being released from about February next year, so February 24, and then the whole album will be out April, May kind of time.
So can you tell me more about being a independent artist for you?
Well, I don't know anything different from being an independent artist. Though, in the very beginning, when I released the first album, that was a kind of partnership. So I was still independent, but it was on a label called Locrian Records. A guy in South Australia who was recording people like me, basically, and then releasing them and doing mail order. He was quite ahead of his time, actually. So that was that one. When I came back to it, though, things had really moved on and it had become a lot cheaper to record. So being an independent artist was even easier, I would say. What does it mean for me? It means I can record exactly what I want. It means I can look around to find, and this is what I do, I love doing this, look around to find the right people to be a musician, to be guests on each album, to find the right studio to go to. And that's also one of the joys of recording, I suppose. I mean, piecing it all together and going, who do we want to play drums on this? Who do we want to play the different things? Yeah.
So finally, can you tell my listeners where can they find you on social media?
Oh, yeah, I'm in most places. So most active on Facebook. And I've got a pretty good YouTube channel that you can look up and see lots of live videos and a few other things. Yeah, and Spotify, of course, and all the streaming channels. You can stream all my music, and I'm on Bandcamp. If you want to actually buy anything, it's all for sale on Bandcamp, and I've got a website, KarenLawMusic.com. you can come and find me there too. Yeah.
Thank you for letting me chat to you today.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
I know it's a bit early, but I wish you a Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Thanks very much. Same to you.
And I wish you all the success. So, we'll say goodbye to Karen Law now. Goodbye.
Bye now.
Goodbye.